Allison Love will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to come together as a community and a council to make decisions for all of our constituents. And please lead us and steer us in the right direction. Help us make wise choices. And we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you. We will have the oath of office for new appointed board and commission members with Amy Falconberry, Nancy Dixon McMullen, and Tamara Osborne. Please come up front.
Solemnly swear that I am duly qualified according to the Constitution of this state to exercise the duties of the office to which I have been appointed, and that I will to the best of my ability discharge the duties thereof and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of this state and of the United States. So help me God.
Thank you for serving. Congrats. Thank you for serving. Yeah. Thank you for serving. Appreciate it. Thank you, girl. Appreciate it. They've been practicing that, didn't they?
It's been a long time.
Under public forum, please remember that you're limited to 2 minutes, and we would ask that you state your name and address when you come to the podium. Appearances. Under appearances, we're having Green and Finney. Come on up.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Emily Sobczak. I'm with Green Finney. We are the county's external auditors, and I'm here this evening to present the results of the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018. Helps you when you turn these things on. So when it comes to the audit, the financial report, all of the information included in that report, there's lots of good information in there, lots of disclosures, in addition to the financial statements themselves. That is the responsibility of the county. And so in order for your finance department, for management to provide good financial information, not only at year end for audit purposes, but also throughout the year for you to make good strategic decisions for the county, it's very important that you have good internal controls in place. Those help to ensure that the information that's being provided is accurate, complete, and reliable. And when it comes to internal controls, it's not only important to set up your policies and procedures and put those internal controls in place initially, but it's important to continually, at least annually, review your policies and procedures and make sure that they're best addressing the risks of the county. So our responsibility then, as your auditor, is to audit the financial information provided and issue an opinion on that financial information. We did issue an unmodified opinion again this year, and that is a clean opinion, the best opinion the county can receive. That opinion provides reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. So it is important to keep in mind that we're not auditing every single transaction that occurred during the year. That would be far too timely, far too costly, and we are using a materiality level when determining what procedures we need to perform. We do note here that included in your opinion this year is what's called an emphasis of matter paragraph. That simply highlights that a significant accounting standard was implemented during the year. That was GASB 75 related to retiree health care, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But first, let's look at your general fund, the financial position at June 30th. Your general fund had a total fund balance of $89.6 million as of June 30th. That was an increase of $10.8 million from the prior year. And included in that $89.6 million is non-spendable fund balance. These are amounts that are not in spendable form of $2.1 million. That's primarily related to assets held for sale. You also have restricted fund balance. So these are amounts that are externally restricted of $4.7 million, primarily for economic development. And then you have committed fund balance of $47 million. These are amounts that have been internally committed by you, council, for various purposes, including for future capital needs, York County Forever, and debt service reserves. And then just a small amount of assigned fund balance. Those are also internally designated amounts. So if we take out those amounts that are already designated for other purposes, we're left with unassigned fund balance of $35.7 million. And we always like to put that in terms of your operating expenditures to give you an idea of where you stand compared to your budget as a whole. And you're looking at unassigned fund balance of 34% of your budgeted 2019 expenditures. So the county's policy is to maintain a fund balance of at least 25% of your budgeted expenditures. And so as you can see, y'all are in compliance with that policy and in very good financial condition as of June 30th. There are a number of reasons why it's so important to maintain a good, healthy fund balance. One very significant one that you are reaping the benefits of is bond rating agencies really look at your financial condition when they are looking at your bond ratings. And I was excited to hear that y'all recently received a significant upgrade, and that reflects not only on your good financial condition, but also on the strategic decisions that you have made as council to really help guide the future for the county by really looking at your fund balance and making designations to prepare for future needs, future infrastructure, future debt service. That's really what bond rating agencies like to see, and that's what we like to see as well. Other reasons why it's important to maintain a healthy fund balance, one other important one that can often be forgotten is that we are measuring fund balance as of June 30th. And as you know, your most significant revenue source, your property tax revenues, don't start coming in until January. So you've got 6 months of cash flows to get through before those significant revenues start coming in again. So now we'll look at the activity for the year. Your general fund revenues were $104.9 million. That was a 7% increase from the prior year. And 4% better than budget. And those increases were primarily related to increased property taxes due to increases in assessed values. You also had increases in your licenses, fines, and permits. On the expenditure side, you had expenditures of $90.5 million for 2018. That was just a 1% increase from the prior year and 16% below the budgeted expenditures. And that variance with the budget is primarily due to vacancies, positions that were anticipated to be filled but were not. You were also lower than budgeted expenditures in a variety of other departments, public safety, road maintenance, and also in your economic development projects that were deferred to future years. Then if we look at all of your governmental funds combined, so including your general fund, special revenue funds, capital projects funds, and your debt service funds, you're looking at total revenues and net other financing sources of $194 million compared to total expenditures of about $234 million. And it is important to note there that the reason the expenditures are so high is that that includes some spending down of prior year bond proceeds. Capital outlay and debt service related to resources received in prior years. We do also note that we have 2 new capital projects funds for fiscal 18, the Pennies 4 fund and also the reserve fund, which was created during the current year. Now we'll look at the enterprise funds. Remember, your utility funds are reported more similar to businesses. So whereas your governmental funds are reported on a modified accrual basis, we don't report capital assets or debt on those funds. We do report those items on your enterprise funds. So your water and sewer fund had an increase in net position of $8 million for fiscal 18 compared to an increase of $10.4 million in the prior year. That was a result of slightly lower revenues and an increase in expenses, an increase in water purchases compared to the prior year. On the solid waste disposal fund, you had an increase in net position of $0.7 million compared to a decrease of $1.5 million in the prior year. And the main reason driving that is that in the prior year you had some significant landfill-related costs as estimates for future costs for the landfill were adjusted. A couple of other more unusual items that are reported on your full accrual statements that are not included on the fund level statements are the reporting for your pension and retiree health care plans. And so on your government-wide statements, we are reporting your net pension liability related to your participation in the state retirement system. And it is a significant liability, $102.6 million as of June 30th. But the important thing to keep in mind here is that that's not a liability that you have any control over. You don't control the investments that, that they are using to help drive investment returns. You don't control the assumptions that they're using to estimate that liability. And you don't even control how quickly that liability is being paid down or how the pension is being funded. The state mandates the contribution rates, and so what you're required to do is to pay the employer and employee contributions as dictated by the state. Now, what is very important to keep in mind is that those contribution rates have been increasing over recent years. For fiscal 18, the contribution rates increased by 2%, bringing the state retirement system rate for governmental employees to 13.5%, and the police officers' retirement system rate was 16.2% for fiscal 18. Those rates are scheduled to continue to increase by 1% annually for the next 5 years. So that means that in fiscal 2023, we're looking at rates of 18.5% and 21.2% for the South Carolina retirement system and police officers' retirement system. So those are significant increases that will be directly affecting your operating budget. And so rather than focusing on that big liability, you really want to look at what it's doing to your actual cash flows. Now, similar to the reporting for the pension plan is the reporting for the retiree healthcare plan. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this did change for fiscal 18. So we implemented GASB number 75, and that requires us to report the total unfunded actuarial liability related to the retiree healthcare plan on your full accrual statements. It brings the reporting for the retiree health care in line with the reporting for pension. The big difference here is that the county has its own retiree health care plan. So that means that you are in control of the plan. You determine the benefit terms, you determine the contribution rates, you really have total control over that plan. And so for your retiree health care plan, as of June 30th, you're looking at a net OPEB liability of $30.4 million. As I mentioned, that is only on your full accrual statement, so you won't see that liability on your general fund statement. And because this was a newly implemented standard, we did record a prior period adjustment of $30 million to bring the beginning net position in line with the new accounting standards. A few other items to note. Again, long-term assets and obligations are only reported on your full accrual statements. You reported capital assets of $319 million as of June 30th. You had significant additions during the year of $73 million. That was primarily related to ongoing capital projects. So the recycling center, the public works building, the new Justice Center, and Administrative Center. Those projects were all ongoing during the year. and you had construction commitments related to those projects outstanding at year end as well. We do also note here that it's important to remember that the assets of the county do include the assets for the rural fire districts. The buildings and equipment, the vehicles used by those districts are considered county assets, and they are included in the capital assets reported in your CAFR. On the other side, the long-term obligations, you have outstanding debt as of June 30th of $138.9 million. There was no new debt issued during the year, and so the change from the prior year was due to principal payments made of $12.4 million. And you're looking at expected principal payments on that outstanding debt, principal and interest of $17.8 million for fiscal 19. We like to keep you aware of any new upcoming accounting standards. There are a couple that could have some impact on the county, nothing quite as significant as the pension and retiree healthcare standards, but GASB 84 will provide new guidance for accounting for fiduciary activities. That is not expected to have any significant impact on you, but as we get closer to implementation in fiscal 2020, we will talk a little bit more about that if there is anything that you should be aware of. We're also looking at GASB 87, which will change the guidance for reporting leases. This one will become effective in fiscal 2021. And so again, as we get closer to the implementation date, if there are things that you should consider related to that implementation, we'll talk about them further. We did perform a single audit for fiscal 2018. A single audit is required in any year where your federal expenditures exceed $750,000. So this year we looked at the Title IV-D program, that's the Child Support Services, and I'm pleased to say we had no findings related to that single audit. We also had no findings noted related to the financial statement audit, so no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses reported in your CAFR. Every year, in addition to the audit opinions, in addition to the CAFR, we issue a management letter. And that's primarily required communications from us as your auditor to council and to management. And from time to time, we may have significant recommendations that we want to include in writing, and that's another place where we could do that. If we don't feel they rise to the level of needing to be reported as a finding, we may have them as written management letter comments. But again, nothing that we felt needed to be reported for the current year. So those are the areas that really reflect on the great job that's done by management, that's done by your staff, all of the hard work that they do in making sure that things are done the right way, that they're complying with the internal controls, with the policies and procedures of the county. That's really where their report card is in those compliance reports and in the management letter. So great job done by everyone. Always a pleasure to work with. So we enjoy being able to continue to work with y'all. That brings me to my conclusion. Again, great financial condition. That's something to really be proud of. And if y'all have any questions, I'm happy to answer those now.
Any questions?
Chairman.
Mr. Blackwell?
In terms of the other post-employment benefits, do we stand up pretty well with like other county municipal governments in the state?
Yes, y'all have done a great job of funding your OPEB plan. I think you're looking at about 30% funded, which is actually, when it comes to retiree health care, that's actually much better than many of our clients. Some of our clients have not done any pre-funding for those
So you think
plans.
we're kind of trying to stay ahead of the curve?
Yes, sir. I think y'all are right where you want to be. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Roddy?
You almost stole my question, Brett.
Sorry.
I guess part of my question was looking at the employees' retirement. You know, you mentioned, you know, some of what comes from the state has been kind of unfunded to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. If an employee's watching at home and hears, you know, some of that, what can we do, or are we right where we need to be, or how do we improve that position to fund the employees' retirements? Because we don't want any of our employees kind of thinking or feeling like, well, my retirement may come up short.
Well, that's really in the state's hand. The state is, as I mentioned, dictating the contribution rates. They're also determining you know, if they're going to change the benefit terms, which I have not heard any recent talk about upcoming changes. That's really completely in their control. And so y'all are doing exactly what you need to be doing by funding the contribution rates at the rates determined by the state.
Okay, and one more question. Can you go back to your enterprise fund slide?
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, you know, you went over a previous slide, it's not on this one, talking about our unrestricted funds at 35.7 million, and also that number being 34% of our 2019 operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
At what level, if this was 2%, 3%, would that raise a red flag? Should that be a red flag if we were down to 2% or 3% against our operating expenses?
2% or 3%, yes, that would be very concerning. Generally, we recommend not going below 2 months or about 17%. That's where we generally become concerned. There are a number of factors to consider when to, you know, it's hard to make just a
Blanket
black and white line about
Right,
where to
right.
be concerned. But yes, you don't want that falling low. I mean, certainly not below 10%. I mean, but generally we say don't fall below 2 months or 17%.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anyone else?
I'm on
Mr. Winkley?
channel my good friend that sat in this chair here for 10 years and give our treasurer a hard time for a minute. And just make a comment that for some reason that popped in my head. I think I would hear Chad saying that, looks like they upgraded when they got rid of Kevin, huh? So-
Definitely so, definitely so.
Well, he left big shoes to fill, but we're trying.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wait, I don't know how to make this go off.
Now, back to the public forum. Again, I would ask that you give your name and address, and remember that you do have 2 minutes. First to sign up was Nora Daher. Yes. Please come forward.
My name is Noura Daher. I live in Fort Mill 5089 Downing Drive, Fort Mill, South Carolina 29708. And I'm the applicant for the case 1820, the property 102 Weatherwood. And it's zoned BD1, and we would like to develop it, and we're asking to have it as BD3. The property right now is zoned BD1. As you know that we can open detail shop or car wash, but it doesn't allow us to open a car sale, to sell cars. So the property is adjacent. There is on the east, there is the urban development properties. The majority or all the properties from the east are urban development, and from the west, it's BD3. And as per my information, I looked some information online, and I was being able to find the zoning map, and I didn't find any BD1 in the area. All what I can find other than residential, it's BD3 and urban development. So we would like you to, to advise us or to give us the approval. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to guess on the next name. Is it Naeem? Naeem Daher.
Good evening. My name is Naeem Daher. I'm the husband in support of this rezoning. The address is 5089 Downing Drive in Fort Mill, South Carolina. Like my wife, emphasized the property and that we're asked to rezone. If you look in west, on the right next to it, it's currently zone BD3. 2 properties down is also zone BD3. On the left-hand side of the property, if you look on west, there's U-Haul, which is, you can lease, rent, whatever. So I'd ask to consider rezoning it, and it's just going to be a small family-operated business, just myself and my wife, and I thank you.
Thank you. Herbert
He said it's gonna be for Carlotta.
Arden.
Carlotta.
My name is Herbert Alton. I live at 1586 Avenue Church Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina. And our family inherited this property, and it's hard to live in an area where businesses on both sides. And we lived on a main highway to begin with, and we wasn't in on a development or anything. And it all changed when we changed the address, and they changed the name of the road, and they put BD1, but it's hard to live in between two businesses as a resident, and it's hard to have a business, BD1, because we didn't get anybody that wanted to buy it at BD1. And we really want to sell it because it's our inheritance, and we just appreciate you voting yes for it.
Thank you, sir.
Is this the owner of the property?
Mr. Otten. Mr. Otten. Are you the owner of the property?
No, our family inherited the property, my brothers and sisters.
Okay, but so you and your brothers and sisters own the property?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. James Otten.
My name's James Alton. I'm a brother to the fellow that just spoke. And,
Please address.
I'm sorry.
Your address, please.
Oh, okay. I live at 644 Museum Road in Rock Hill. And I wanted to point out a few things that I ask y'all for special consideration. The first thing I'd like to say is I don't think this young couple can be beat as far as somebody that could buy property and be a good neighbor. They're Christian people, and I've enjoyed meeting them. And I think anybody that would be in opposition would end up being the same way. They would be glad to be neighbors with those folks. And secondly, if I have a hearing problem, I haven't heard everything that everybody has said, but I would like to say that some of the things that I saw hinted at was it would bother the neighborhood. And I can't think of anything on earth that could go there that could possibly be approved by the road frontage that's already there, that the neighbors are already used to. And this is the last house there. My parents lived there for 75 years, I reckon, all told. And the business on this side that's come in closed, one on both sides has come in and closed the residential type neighborhood against my parents. And yet they agreed to not stop anybody from coming in and all this type stuff, and they were good neighbors too. But I would like to ask special consideration. We spoke before the other group, the Planning Commission, and they had a little denial to begin with, I think, in writing somewhere, and we approached them with some of the same defense and so forth, and I think they passed it 5-2. Is that right?
Yes.
And I would like to ask y'all to look very careful. And I spoke with them, and I told them, I said, I think it would be good if y'all would be nice enough to go out there and physically look at it. I can't believe that any opposition could come to these folks that wants to, put a business there. Residential won't work, and I just can't see any opposition. And one last thing, down there where if they was objecting to traffic, this little road off the 4-lane there, it goes like this, and then it goes back around into the neighborhood. Well, there's a place down there, if the neighborhood wanted to, they could just shut that off right there. There's nothing down there but neighborhood. But nobody goes down there anyway because it's just no reason to go there.
Mr. Otten, I have to stop you. Your time is up, but thank you.
Sir,
Your time is up. Thank you very much.
I didn't know it's a time limit,
That's
but
all right.
thank y'all for listening. I appreciate your consideration.
Before we enter the consent agenda, is there any item that anyone would request to be removed? Do we have a motion then?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none. Old business number 1, consider first reading, case number 18-20, tax map number 544000031, request zoning from BD1 to BD3 on 1.53 acres at 102 Weatherwood Street.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny the rezoning request.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I was just informed, and just listening to the two gentlemen and the young lady that came and spoke about what's going on in the area, and considering, and I can understand some of the concerns about going directly to BD3, because if the car lot ever changed, something else could come there that may not be probably in the best interest of the area. So my question now would go to staff: could we not, knowing that the intended purpose be a car lot, could we not have some conditions without doing the BD3 that would limit some of the other maybe undesirables to come there? Could we put some conditions so that if the car lot ever did leave, that maybe it would be restricted to whether it comes back to council to, could we revert the zoning back, or what could we do? Because I can't see someone wanting to live next to, was it Matthews Construction and a lot of the other things that's in the area, and knowing that BD3 is right across the street, down the street. I mean, this thing, is it on 161?
No,
Does it
it's
sit
the-
on
it's
161?
the road past it. It's an adjacent road, kind of like by an interstate,
Yeah.
side road.
And so, and my concern is, you know, apparently this property is gonna change hands. Could we not work it out to where a car lot is feasible to go there through another zoning, or would it have to be BD3? That's for staff.
Yeah, we can put,
Because I see the planning commission
yes, sir.
approved it.
Yes, sir,
And
council.
staff has the heartburn.
Yes, council has the ability to put special conditions on it. However, that being said, because it doesn't follow a comprehensive plan, staff would have to say, no, we would have to say, we deny this.
Yeah, and that was some of the points I was getting ready to make. I mean, the planning commission kind of knocked around a 100-foot buffer, and then they kind of backed off. I wasn't there. I try not to bother the commissions or whatever, but they kind of tossed it around, and then they ended up, I think that was a 4-3 vote against, and then they talked more and ended up a 5-2 vote for. But when I talked to staff, the big concern was BD3 opens up a whole hornet's nest of things that wouldn't be appropriate. And because of that, and the 100 or so people that live, and I understand some people say this property is part of that neighborhood. I don't think technically it is part of that neighborhood, but it's right beside it. It could be considered part of that neighborhood. And every person that I know of, including the petition that was signed, is totally opposing it. And the fact that staff pointed out it was not part of a comprehensive use plan, it was against that, and BD3 is not an appropriate zoning for the other options it would provide. That's why I came to the conclusion it's just not appropriate.
Is the hesitation because of what could come there once BD3 opens the door, or was the heartburn just with the car lot?
No, I mean, I grew up around a car business, so I have no problem with that, but I guess you're asking for
Yeah.
my or the neighbors.
I just wanna know, because
Yeah, I think the neighbors were concerned about the zoning BD3 from everything I heard. They just did not like what that would open it up to if they would leave.
right, I get that. So
And-
could we, I mean, Bill just said we could do some, an exception or put some conditions. So I guess my question was, how do we do that? What would that look like?
You're saying, could you keep it BD1 and have a special exception, is what you're saying, I guess?
No, I think what he's saying is,
Go ahead, Ms. Level.
so I'm very familiar with this property, and it is, this property, was actually, on Celanese bypass. It was on 161, And it's beside Matthews Construction and a very large storage facility that's there, that's been there for many, many years. Then there's this little really small home that is in question. And then to the left of that, if you're standing on Celanese, is another business that I would consider quite intrusive itself. I don't know the name of the business or what they do, but I did drive down through there and I actually took some pictures of it, and it's not something that I would want to live beside. But you have to remember that we did allow a automotive shop to operate within a neighborhood over off of Mount Gallant. So I feel like that was, if we would do that, then certainly putting a business on highway, on Celanese bypass, lined up with other businesses that are car dealerships, a construction company, with all their big trucks coming and going at the same intersection. What this looks like is, if you come out Rawlinson Road and you're looking straight ahead, there's Matthews Construction on the right, and if you go straight, it's the back of Matthews Construction and the storage unit. This house is to the left of the storage unit. There are no other homes. There is a development, a neighborhood to the rear of that, and it is not visible to Celanese bypass. I'm gonna support this, and I do agree with Bump that I think, originally the neighbors didn't want a kennel there, and I think that is understandable. But if staff would I'm gonna support it either way, but if staff would help and maybe put some conditions on it that would not allow something such as a kennel or things that would be noisy, even though it's right on Celanese bypass, there's not much more noise than construction equipment and traffic, but I think that would maybe help. But I would support this rezoning because I think it's fitting in keeping with what's actually there.
Any discussion from this, Mr. Winkler?
I have, I'd like a little more clarification from staff, and I know we asked for about 5 and none of us allowed you to speak yet, so we'll let you.
I raised my hand. And
We're going to come, we are going to come back.
But, in looking at, knowing where it's at and looking at the aerial shot of all the other businesses that are nearby and everything, I have a little bit of a hard time understanding why BD3 doesn't fit into the planning there when all of that other is, there's already so many businesses and industrial stuff there. So, I have some question with that. I'm not the expert, and I usually try to defer to staff on that, but in looking at the aerial shot on it, and I know where it's at too, you drive by it every time you go to Rock Hill pretty much. I just have some question as to, when I saw that the staff recommendation was the denial, and it's a whole nother ballgame as to whether or not, why we think a car detail shop or a car wash or something else is a BD1, but a car dealership is a BD3. That's a whole nother ballgame that confuses the heck out of me. But why does this not fit into the plan? I guess would be the big question for me.
Anyone else? Before we go, David, I want David to answer the question. I just want to make sure we get all the questions out and then let him answer them all.
But my line of thinking, the question is basically the same as Robert's, so I'll spare the repetition.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll take the last question first. The land use plan recommends single-family residential, so that's the primary reason this does not comply with the comprehensive plan. The larger question as to whether, Mr. Roddy's question as to whether or not you can place conditions on this rezoning, I will say that council has done that in the past. And I've had discussions with our attorney, Mr. Kendry, who says that is, in his opinion, that is a legal way to address. I'll let him speak, but that's my understanding. I've only been with planning for about 8 months. I've taken the position, and we've had discussions with the planning commission that we don't feel it's appropriate to place conditions on rezoning, on zoning categories. And the thought being that if you have a zoning district that is BD3 or single family, those should apply across the board to all properties zoned BD3 or single family. And when you look at a zoning map and it's designated that, you should be able to go to the book, the code, and see what uses are allowed in that district. What we have done is we have the ability to do it with our GIS system, is to, when you rezone property, you can place the zoning designation and indicate that there are conditions in addition to our zoning code that are on that particular piece of property. Again, I'm not sure that's an appropriate way to do rezonings, because if I'm a developer that's in another location and I'm looking at the zoning map, I'm looking at the zoning district, I'm doing my due diligence to determine if I buy this piece of property, can I do this activity? I may not realize that there is a separate condition on that property that prohibits me from doing what I expect I would be able to do. But as to the legal question, I'll defer to our counsel on that.
Mr. Kendra, you want to chime in?
We have a mechanism to place conditions on the rezonings for specific uses.
And I want to make this last note is one of the toughest things that we do up here when it comes to rezoning is trying to do what's right and trying to do what we can. And I think 90% of the rezonings that we have, some way, somehow, neighbors come forward, speak forward or speak against it. And I think that's one mechanism that this council has that I think is a great tool to be able to maneuver and protect the neighborhood, protect those who have that interest, as well as serve the people who come with an interest. And I think by having that tool, we're able to serve both. Sometimes we're not able to make it work. I don't think this is a far stretch to say putting conditions. And I get your point that someone may be looking on the system and saying, well, I want to purchase this property, I want to do this with it, only to find that there are other conditions. But I don't want to not be open, and I'm not saying let's do it. I don't want to say let's not be open to doing it just because of what may happen in the future, because we have a petitioner here in front of us right now that's trying to work something out. And my only hope is, and I haven't written by the property, I do apologize, I was out of town all weekend, to ride by to see how this plays into it, because I know the area well. I know Matthews Construction, I know Snipes is across the street from Matthews, so it's not like you're going directly into a neighborhood. And my only hope is that before anybody votes no who hasn't written by the property, the gentleman challenged us to ride by to take a look to see before we vote against it. But I just know we have a tool that could protect the neighbors' interests as well as serve the petitioners that's coming before us. And I think we'll be doing a great injustice if we just vote no, because we've had split decisions that come between staff and the planning commission before. So that really makes it hard, because sometimes we just stand behind what both of them say. Well, planning and staff says no, so we'll say no. Now we have a situation where planning says yes, staff says no. And that makes our job that much more harder, but I think we owe it to the petitioners and the people, whether they're selling the property or whatever they're doing, to go out and really give this a hard look. It's just first reading. I know a lot of times we approve things on first reading, and it may be conditions come up after it, but I don't feel comfortable just saying no, not really doing all we can to see if we can make it work. And if it comes out we can't, then we're back to saying no.
Well, let me wrap it up by just saying that certainly if it was on Celanese Road, if it was beside Snipes' property, I'd have absolutely no problem with it. This has kind of been a unique situation. It's a side road that runs parallel to Celanese. There was zoning in '96 for one of the properties that probably shouldn't have been zoned the way it was. You don't want to make things worse by carrying on a mistake from the past. It doesn't meet the comprehensive land use plan. I thought we did that for a reason, and that's what everybody sits up here and talks about. We need to stay within those boundaries. And, you know, let's set aside that we say we work for the people and every person to a T was against it in that adjoining neighborhood, which is kind of a side road again, and it's not right on Celanese. So that, here again, if it was on Celanese, as pro-business as I am, I'd be for it, but it's just kind of in an odd situation, which kind of shows you what the planning commission went through as they were trying to juggle with it and decide what they wanted to do. And I understand the fellow council members, how they feel. I kind of leaned one way, and then I leaned another way, and then I just thought, you know, in fairness, the fact it doesn't meet the comprehensive land use plan, and we set that for a reason, and all the neighbors to a T opposed it, and the staff said it just doesn't really fall into the appropriate zoning. That concluded it for me.
All right, no other discussion. All those in favor of the motion to deny this rezoning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. 4-3. Motion does not pass. Is there a new motion?
Move that we approve first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor to approve first reading, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
It passes 4-3. Council to hold a discussion regarding the public hearing process for rezonings. Mr. Blackwell had mentioned this during the last meeting, during the non-agenda comments, and Mr. Blackwell, what say you?
We tried something 7 months ago, which turned out to not be an improvement. It was, kind of caused more problems. The way it was, people heard about it at the last minute, couldn't really look up information about it, kind of in a panic, didn't know what to do. And then after that, if they didn't decide to come and talk and confuse, then we jump into the readings and they have no chance to say anything else after that. So, talking to some of the people in Rock Hill how they do it, they recommended that works great for them. They just require the rezoning request to go to the neighbors and tell them everything about it before you have first reading. And that was the object of what we tried to come up with before, I guess. But, I mean, you always try something, but then you got to be willing to admit this doesn't work. So, you know, I would suggest that that might be I mean, it's not that involved, so it's not that complicated, but it sounds like we don't have to reinvent the wheel if Rock Hill came up with a great way to do it.
Anyone else? Thoughts? I did not, I was not happy with the old way. I'm not sure the new way is smooth either. What I'm going to do is ask that the zoning committee take a look at this, work with staff, and get us an answer back in the next 30 to 45 days that the full council can agree on so that we can change this. What I don't want to do is go back to the old way and then we change this again, and over a 60-day period, we've changed it twice. That doesn't serve any purpose. So let's get that done as quickly as possible, please. Council to approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget calendar.
Make a motion to approve the calendar as presented to council.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll just make a quick comment. I know some of the dates on there come out to be a real conflict with my job. I'll make every effort to make the dates without trying to rework everything, but it's kind of worked out pretty good in the past, so.
Sorry about that.
I think what we did, I was going to mention this in the F&O committee meeting, but one of the things that I know that when the schedule first came out, there were actually going to be 2 more meetings than originally planned, and so what was done was to consolidate 2 of the council workshops with the standing workshop, so that way we can cover it and have 2 less meetings. And I thought that was a good result, and that's something that was discussed at the F&O meeting.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. Committee other reports. The Finance and Operations Committee, Chairwoman Christy Cox.
Finance and Operations met today at 5:30, and I think somebody left us a big Christmas present, a whole big agenda of approvals. We had some discussion. Jimmy Sprouse from the Natural Gas Board came to remind the council of a vacancy that's coming up on the York County Natural Gas Board. As you know, there's 10 members on this board. 1 is appointed by the York County Council. Currently, our position is the only one that's limited in terms. All the rest of the members can actually serve. What do you need? Not for the natural gas. The county has 3? Oh, well, I totally missed that. I thought it was a 3-year term, 1 vacancy.
There's only 1 vacancy.
1 vacancy. Right, there's 1.
3 total.
Right, there's only 1 vacancy.
But one's coming up.
Right, 1 vacancy. So what he wanted to do is to make sure that we actually had 2 or 3 applications that had come in. I think the committee wanted to make sure that any council member who had someone that they were interested in having apply for that have an opportunity to do that. It's the seat that Billy Hagner currently occupies, and his term expires in March. So we'll leave that open for at least the next, until we can make sure that we appoint it before that term expires. So if anyone's got anyone to apply, if they'll go ahead and do that, we need to do that. We also considered applications for service for several boards. The Catawba Regional Workforce Investment Board, we had to defer 1 appointee to address a tax issue, that there was a recommendation to approve Rosalind Harps for a second term on that board. On the ZBA, the recommendation was made to reappoint Albert Quarles for a second term to serve in the slot for District 6. Leslie Fire Tax Advisory Board, recommendation was made for Michael Caruth to serve a first term on that board. Economic Development, we recommended approval of Ronnie Beck to serve a first term. He is in the Catawba Indian Nation District. On the CVB, there was an appointment, an at-large appointment, which Billy Dunlap made a recommendation on that for Matthew Martin, and the committee agreed to recommend him for service as a first term on that slot. And there's a recommendation to approve David Roberts for a second term on that board. Flint Hill, the committee recommended James Lightsey for a first term. There was another vacancy that's being deferred to address a tax issue. On the Planning Commission, there was a vacancy in District 3, and the committee recommended approval of Aubrey Parham to fill that slot. Bethel Fire Tax Advisory Board, the committee recommended Peter Capacelli to serve in the 4-year term, John Howard to serve in the 3-year term, Joe Costello to serve the 1-year term, and there's a 2-year term and a 1-year term that were deferred for consideration at the next meeting.
That's not right. So it's, can I just run through those real quick?
Okay.
Okay, so Peter Capacelli will be the 4-year term, and John Howard will be the 3-year term. Paul Rod, oh, we're waiting on John Howard. Okay, what did we do, Karen?
We did what I said. I wrote that.
Yeah. So, okay. Is Paul Rodriguez, and the 1-year term is Joe Costello.
That's not what our records show, but then I also didn't have Costello. You've got the.
There's a 1-year term and a 3-year term still open.
Paul Rodriguez 2, Joe Costello 1, deferred to 3, and Peter
Capacelli.
for 4.
Okay, what she said.
Karen is correct.
All right, and our last one was the Hospitality Tax Committee. The committee recommended Dorothy Johnson for a first term on that committee.
Thank you. Any council member new non-agenda comments? Anyone? Mr. Roddy,
Surprisingly.
you're ready today.
Well, it's going to be a short meeting, so I think I should kind of prolong it just a little.
Not the way we're going.
I have a final update on something we've been, when I say we, myself, Bill, Karen, Linda, been looking at the employee and boards and commissions, I guess you would call it a York County Day, York County Night over at Winthrop. We've got some final numbers. I know Karen and Linda and Bill probably tired of hearing me go back and forth with them. But when Linda sent out a kind of a little survey asking employees would they be interested in doing this and joining us, so far in the total number that we have, we've had 185 employees and 21 boards and commission members say they're interested in going to this game, Winthrop basketball game, which we picked February the 23rd, which is actually their last home game, to have like a little appreciation for our employees and boards and commission members. And it comes out that it's going to be $10 per ticket. The county's going to pick up the tab, or looking to pick up the tab if we get this agreed upon. And several people requested 4 tickets, so we're looking at getting, I think it was a total of 670 tickets, which comes up to $6,700. In the past, going back to 2006, 2007, 2008, when we've done this in the past, and some of this was before I got on council, and I remember us doing this at least once or twice at Knight Stadium. But in 2006, the same event, we spent $25,650. 2007 was $21,638. 2008 was $25,000. So we've been spending some pretty sizable amounts. And this event, which Winthrop basketball tickets are a lot less expensive than going to the Knights game and paying for $15, $20 buffets for everybody to just come out and eat. So this is a much lower price tag. And I'll just read some of the comments that employees sent back in saying how they like the idea. Said, I would love to attend a Winthrop basketball game. I have boys and a fiance, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for offering this. This is one of many reasons why I'm glad I transferred to this agency. Everything everyone does to enhance the employees' lives and their well-being is greatly appreciated. Others just said, great idea, great incentive. So a lot of good response came back from the employees, and having that number of responses, I mean, we had a Christmas party, and I don't think we had this larger response, but this being a low-budget, low-cost event of only $6,700, and it'll give us an opportunity as well to go out and put on some jeans and T-shirt or whatever and be in the midst of, you know, meeting and greeting some of the employees and personally thanking them. And so I've talked to Bill several times on it, and Linda put together all this stuff for us and been working with the people over at Winthrop, and each person that attends. So the ticket comes with, for $10 a person, you get admission to the game, a hot dog, popcorn, and 20-ounce drink. You know, so it's a pretty decent deal for $10 a person. I know I had looked at some other options, but they were much more expensive. You know, even looking at Carowinds, you can't even get a family of four, and you can't buy one ticket at Carowinds for $40. So, but just looking at some different options, I think this is a pretty good option. And this will be the first year in a long time that we've kind of showed employees that kind of a appreciation. So with it being that said, I'll ask Bill if you wanted to add anything, but this is something well doable and well within our price range to do.
Excuse me. We definitely have the funds to do it. We've been, as you know, real careful with the money that we've got. It would be right around $7,000. I think it's definitely matches our goals to help keep people and show them that we care about them and help build morale. I think morale's doing pretty good right now. This could do nothing but make it even better. So I would definitely support this.
And Winthrop's in second place right now. They're 5-1 in second place, and Thursday night they're playing on ESPN2, big game coming up this week.
Any other comments?
I'll just ask the question about that. Is that something that we need a motion and a vote from council to approve doing that, or?
No, that is built into the county manager's budget as previously discussed, and he has discretionary funds to use on these types of things. And so this is not an increase to our budget. This is a number built into the budget. Ms. Love.
I would like to formally ask for a public meeting in District 2. Happy to help arrange that down at the volunteer fire department there. This would be to show the constituents in my area and the people who travel Highway 557 exactly what is in store for them and the pennies for progress that we voted on a few years back. There was originally several meetings held, and after those meetings, the plans changed drastically, and yet the people have not been notified of that. So people are unsure of exactly what it looks like. And I will just say again that I still have some concerns about it, and I would like for the people to have the opportunity to see what's in store for us. And I'd like to have that scheduled within the next 3 weeks if possible, because we are out trying to get those rights of way currently.
Anyone else? I'm going to add something very quickly. Last week marked the 1-year anniversary of Officer Doty of the Sheriff's Department being killed and 3 other officers wounded. I vividly remember Bill calling me that morning early, and I was Mr. Blackwell was having heart surgery at the time and was out, and I was serving, and that was a phone call I never would want to have again. I want to encourage everyone here, if you haven't watched the Sheriff's Office documentary, it's a 3-part series that goes and kind of details it and has interviews with all of those involved. I have to tell you, I sat down Saturday and watched it. It is moving, and that is putting it mildly. I had to stop it once because I couldn't see the screen because my eyes had teared up. It is one of well put together and a well done documentary, and I want to congratulate the Sheriff's Office for what they did, and I want us to continue to thank all of our law enforcement officers for what they do, and for us to continue to remember Officer Doty and his family, who is, for us, this is in a way, sadly, almost a once-a-year event now, but for them, this is forever, and this is something we should always remember. So,
Where can we find that video at?
that video was on Facebook, and it was on the sheriff's website, as I recall.
You can also get it on YouTube if you go to YouTube and type in York County Sheriff.
York County Sheriff's Office Fallen Heroes, I believe, will pull it up on YouTube.
It's 3 one-hour videos,
Yeah.
on 2 and 3.
Absolutely well done. Citizen concerns, is Beverly Kinley here? Ms. Kinley? Easy enough. Executive session, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we go to executive session to receive receipt of legal advice concerning Fort Mill School District impact fee litigation and opioid litigation update.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We will be back at 10 after 7. No reason to delay. Aye. Aye. We are adjourned.